That morning was extraordinarily beautiful. There wasn't a cloud in the sky.
It was a sunny morning. It was like 72 degrees. I remember vividly. I just opened up the desk and I sat down and I was reaching for my cup of coffee, and then we heard this loud boom.
As a member of EMS, every 3 years I have to recertify to keep my certification to practice patient care. So I was in refresher, and actually the day of 9/11 was our final written exam. Our classes ran from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. My plan was to sleep in, get up a little early, and do some studying before I had to head into class. My fiance at the time, she called me early in the morning, and I'm all upset why she calling me so early, and she said, "You better turn on the television."
So I was at my desk eating my breakfast, and then had a conversation with a coworker when the building began to shake. And the way it shook, it felt like an earthquake, because then it also began to rock. So imagine I'm seated like I am now at my desk, and the building was rocking this way very violently. And then I heard the loud explosion, and so something's happening, something blew up. And so I got up from my desk and proceeded to the staircase to go down.
I didn't know what happened, but looked up at the World Trade Center, and what I saw was this oval pattern of damage. And I remember thinking it was an explosion, but it wasn't blown out. And I remember actually thinking of it from the medical side, it looked like an entrance wound, because the debris went into the building. And that didn't make sense. So just knew it was bad, but did not know what had happened.
I was on the bus, on the express bus coming out of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, and I got a call from Sam Benson asking why I was late to work, because we had a big exercise planned for the next day, a big bioterrorism exercise. And I said, I saw it was Sam, and I was like, oh, he's mad because I'm late. And then I picked up the phone, and Sam said a plane hit the World Trade Center, get to work. So I got off the express bus and ran up Church Street to the World Trade Center. And then I ran through, in the Trade Center complex, there was 4 and 5 and 6. And so I kind of ran between those. And then there was a little bridge that connected World Trade Center 7, where OEM was located, to the main plaza area where the 2 towers were. So I ran kind of through that, and then got upstairs to the EOC.
It was in no one's conscience that a plane would be directed, a commercial plane would be directed into the World Trade Center. So everybody, people were thinking it was a small plane, a private plane that was off track, and people didn't know. It was 2001. There was, I don't think there was any Twitter, and people weren't on their phones. People had cell phones, but not smartphones. Shortly thereafter, the second plane hit, and clearly everything changed. People knew then, we knew that something, nefarious and tragic was afoot.
And I looked, and I see a plane, and it starts turning. I'm like, maybe they're here to help, to turn off the fire. I thought it was a plane full of water or something that came, or the army or something. And just seeing it smash into the building. And I just went crazy.
We evacuated, we did a run around the thing, make sure grabbing people, pulling them away from the windows who, were stuck staring at things out there. And, walked down 23 flights, and then we sort of collected in the lobby, the folks that were in the building.
And as I'm attempting to walk out of the building, we heard a noise that everyone just shook and had no idea what this noise was. It was like a car accident happening above your head. And then when we realized that it was people jumping out of the building that was hitting the atrium cover at World Trade, that's when we knew that this was going to be, well, we already knew it was going to be ugly, but we knew then that this was going to be something that we would never forget as long as we lived.
Took the train because I knew trying to drive in was just going to be a nightmare. Caught the last A train into Manhattan, and it drops me at High Street. As I came out of the subway, there was an ambulance that was heading towards Ground Zero, and I flagged it down and hopped on the ambulance, and they dropped me Church Street and Barclay. Headed down Barclay Street and then into the lobby of 7 World Trade, and ascended the escalator, and at the top of the escalator I encountered one of the Secret Service agents.
Say all that on the last one.
There's nobody up on 23?
No, they evacuated everybody down.
All right, they're probably going to the bus. Thanks.
Yeah.
It took me an hour to get out. So my building was hit at 8:46 in the morning. About 9:46 or so, I got out to the streets. So when I got out on the streets, all of the police officers stationed outside just guided us out to walk east. So I walked east on Fulton Street and stood in the corner of Fulton and Nassau, 2 blocks away. And then within 10 minutes, the South Tower collapsed, and I ran because then there was this huge cloud of dust right behind me. So just trying to stay ahead of that. So I had to keep looking back and seeing the cloud of dust, and I'm thinking, the only thing you would think of is survival, just to stay ahead of the cloud, don't get crushed, and to stay alive.
We heard this complete, almost rumble that you know, deafening that I'd never heard before. Everybody started to run towards the back of the office that we were in, and started screaming, "The building's collapsing! The building's collapsing!" Now we didn't. I mean, what building? The building I'm in? Like you? I mean, you just didn't realize what was happening.
I heard a cop coming, like running on this street, coming up from the Trade Center. He was like, "Run!" And we're looking, and then Nandy was like, "Okay, we gotta run now." And before we turned around to start running south, all you see was a smoke, a ball of smoke just coming. That when the first building was coming down. And me and Nandy looked at each other, like I said, "Put your ID on. If we died, at least we have the identification on us. Let's hold on each other and let's run." And she was like, "Okay." I said, "Put your ID on, come on." And she was like, and she looked at me and I said, "You have to, because look what's coming." I said, "Let's run. Let's give it all effort."
I turned around and went towards the garage entrance at Merrill Lynch. Went into the garage, and I don't remember anything after. The one thing I do remember was these different colors surrounding me. I couldn't hear anything, couldn't see anything, and hit the floor. May have blacked out, I'm not sure, but I do remember crawling into a doorway or a little room with the door. I closed the door, couldn't see anything at all. I attempted to get on my radio and went into a mayday, and I believe they heard me asking me where was my location. Again, we were having people step on the radio, so I don't think they really heard me. And I just laid there. After which I kind of started my hands trying to feel around myself, around the area that I was in, and I came across a bottle or a can and began tapping on the floor, because I heard, at this time I didn't know who it was, but I heard a gentleman saying, keep tapping, I'll come to you. Ultimately, it was the fire department. It was a firefighter who was there for some unknown reason, my guardian angel. And he picked me up, dragged me up the steps, a couple steps, and took me outside to get fresh air. And he said, "Look, I can't stay here with you, but you're going to get fresh air, and someone will come get you."
I remember all the precincts at the 120 got flooded with retired cops, retired firemen, and just average people just wanted help. What could I do? You know, so that was just a big, you know, trying to manage that too. Hey, what could we do? Okay, we're going to see what's going on. I remember I grabbed one of my sergeants, and we grabbed like 5 cops, and we went into Manhattan.
I'll never forget driving from the Yankee Stadium area to what was Ground Zero. There was no traffic. All the highways were closed. There was nobody there. And there is a tunnel that, that loops around the southern tip of Manhattan under Battery Park. And I remember stopping there and seeing a police officer and asking me, "Is the tunnel safe? Have you seen anybody come out of it?" Because I knew that was pretty close. I didn't know what was on the other side. He said, "I haven't seen anybody come out, but I don't know if it's safe."
We got out, you know, the dust and just everything that was surrounding us was. One hand was with some, you know, T-shirt over my face, and the other hand was holding on to the person in front of me because we could barely see, and we were going to go just deploy and find where we could muster with the rest of EMS or where any of the triage areas were, and just going to try to help who we could.
Once the building came down, especially the second building, it just became just dark as could be. I can only look at just arm's length distance. It was just pure destruction. It was pure carnage, and it was just very surreal to see just emergency apparatus, vehicles on fire. Something that you don't tend to see, especially in New York City. You see that in a combat zone or something, but definitely not in an urban setting like that.
Everyone was trying to see if there was anybody still alive. Everyone that was trapped within the cloud, within the rubble, were coming out, and they were being treated, and they were being carted off in the ambulances. And it was just, it was different. I only had 1.5 years on the job at that time, so it was definitely something that I've never experienced before. So I was just tagging along with whoever I was with, and we all worked through whatever we were doing.
When I started to walk down the street, everybody was just covered in white, dust, soot, whatever you decided to call it at the moment. And as I approached, one of our lieutenants was coming at me, and he was unrecognizable until he was, only 2-3 feet away. And he just put his arms on me, and he said, why are you so clean? And I said, LT, I just got here. Where are we at? And he was just in such a, state of, we need to get things done. He told me, grab a team of guys as they arrive and get down there on the pile. We're missing a lot of people.
I remember I grabbed one of those big water jugs from the coolers, and my partner, he grabbed those paper towels, the brown paper towels, and we were running towards the World Trade Center, and we're making makeshift masks with those. He would roll up some of the paper in his hand, I would wet it and give it to people so that we could try to get out of the area.
When a fireman doesn't move when they have the pass alarms on, it gives a slow beep, and when it's not moving for a certain period of time, it gives a loud noise, and it has to be manually shut off. So if it's not manually shut off, it's going to keep going. When we went down there, it was echoing all over the place. Whether it was we took it off some firemen, they left it on the street, or it was just echoing throughout the whole area that I was in. That I remember those vividly.
The first day, after about 5 or 6 hours, I had severe corneal abrasions. from all the dust and debris. And then when I couldn't take it anymore, my partner took me to the hospital where I was treated.
It was probably 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening already, so it was 8, 9 hours after I had arrived on the scene. And a fireman came running across the street and said, "Hey, we found 2 cops stuck in the pile." And I had a whole team of folks from Truck 1 that we were all working together now. So we traversed the pile. And sure enough, you know, there was a few people down in the hole that had found Police Officer Yemeno. You could also hear Sergeant John McLaughlin yelling out from in the rubble. We could not see him. So we went to work. The 2 detectives from ESU kind of had the lead, and they were doing all the digging, and I was kind of trying to, you know, do safety and, you know, coordinate the logistics of coming in and out of, you know, the materials we needed coming in and out of the pile. It's really a hole. We were in a, you know, pretty deep void. We were probably 25, 30 feet under the top of the pile. So it took us, I don't even, you know, I couldn't do the time justice. It felt like forever. But, you know, we eventually got him free, and it took us, you know, a good amount of time. We got him out, and he was transported. And then I was transported to the triage area with the rest of our team. Ultimately ended up at the old St. Vincent's Hospital because they thought I had a heart attack. It turned out it was just, you know, the adrenaline was so high, my heart rate was so high that it wouldn't come down for quite some time. My night ended with, I finally got driven home, which home for me was Orange County, New York at the time. So I went to my parents' house in Staten Island. It's probably 5 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, on a day like that, you don't talk to anybody. They don't know where you are. They don't know what happened to you. And as soon as I hit the side door, my father was there, who was also retired from the NYPD. He just took me and said, "Go to bed." And that was the end of night 1, which was a long night.
And then we began to forward plan. And of course, you know, operations that there were 2 different places, right? Or 3 really. One is the police academy. The other is One Police Plaza, where I was working at police headquarters. And then it's the scene itself. And you know, you're constantly giving instructions back and forth, trying to get resources to be able to understand. So, you know, while at One Police Plaza, so that was the first night, and then the second day as well. And then we kept the churn going until the team was able to build out Pier 92.
So we put together a team, you know, lots of city agencies and consultants and vendors and Motorola's of the world, Computer Horizons, you know, Do It, you know, lots of old friends. And, you know, we went over to the police academy, came up with a plan to build this out. 36 hours later, we were done. It was a lot of work. It was a big team.
Everybody worked together. Watch, command, response, it was together. We ate together, we worked together, we supported each other. You know, we had gators and golf carts, we had generators and light towers. And whatever the guys needed, the responders that were working in the site with the various groups, they would call back and we would get it. We would send a request to Pier 92 and get the supplies needed or go get the supplies that are needed.
It was busy, it was constant. Calling on the phone, you know, taking down, you know, whatever people could donate.
You know, we had probably like 30 people or more maybe working out of the command bus while they, the rest of OEM kind of went to a police academy first, and then they went to, I think it was Pier 94. So it was different.
About 5 days after the incident, there was an EMS task force that was there. It happened to be led by my former lieutenant in EMS. And I remember we were in front of everybody, and it was like we ran into each other and just gave each other a hug. Same thing happened with a senior FBI agent who had worked with, and in the middle of the EOC, and it's like 11:30 at night, it was quite literally like, "You're alive, thank God." My wife had to change our answering machine because of the volume of phone calls for months. And the answering machine was basically like, if you're calling, he's alive, he's just very busy.
Well, most people didn't realize that it was still a very dangerous operation. The location was very unsteady, and the possibility there was actually there were 2 or 3 buildings in the immediate vicinity that were in a collapse zone. So at any point, that was a risk that we were taking. However, we just kept working with the hopes that we could find someone.
We did not find anybody, but I saw that disaster from every angle known to man. I went into tunnels underground. I went to the pass stations. I saw the building, how it had collapsed into the train stations, and you know, the total devastation of coming out through a hole and seeing 125 million tons of debris.
For emergency management for New York City, you know, we were very focused on, you know, search and rescue and cleanup, and the recovery went on for a long time after 9/11 because there was a lot of damage, you know, months of recovery work. And so I did a lot of coordination for the debris operation between the Trade Center site and the landfill. I also coordinated the reimbursement from FEMA.
You know, we always look back at the loss of life that happened today, but it was probably one of the biggest rescues that ever occurred. I mean, the things that were being written about, the fact that the ferry is being used for the first time for evacuations. And that really was the start of a 6-month chaotic, you know, which ended up to be, you know, a chaotic 3 years for all of us as an agency.
All the pictures taped up all over the place of people looking for their loved ones. Going back to work, every emergency room you went to, the walls were just lined with pictures of missing loved ones. Part of working down at Ground Zero, one of my first details was working in the morgue. My responsibility was to identify body parts, tag them, put them in a bag, and then have them ready to be put on the medical examiner's trailer to be taken to the morgue for proper identification. But we had to look at what came out of the bag, try and identify it, tag it as what we thought it was, and then ready to go. That lives with you for a long time.
The day I started was when they took out the last steel, but you know, recovery obviously comes in phases, and that went on to another phase of reconstruction, and there are lots more recovery operations that occurred after that even, because there was so much debris and so much on roofs and in drains and things that had to be like cleaned out and sifted.
You know, you knew after a few weeks after, you're not going to find anybody alive. But you're going to be able to bring home somebody's loved one. Whatever piece, you know, every religion has different rules for burial or, you know, passing. You try to get them that comfort thing, and that's what the job was.
So personally, I had 2 friends from college who died. One was on Flight 11 that came out of Boston, and one worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. Part of it, I went up to Boston for my friend's memorial service. And then since I worked in the Mayor's Office of Grants Administration, we worked closely with the Mayor's Fund, and pretty quickly, the Mayor's Office, the Mayor's Fund, knew that they wanted to do something for the families of the first responders, because it was clear pretty quickly that hundreds of firefighters, police officers, EMTs had perished. And so I worked on setting up the Twin Towers Fund, which was the fund that received donations from New Yorkers, from people all over the world, from corporations. I mean, there was an outpouring, clearly. People were very generous, working through those donations and making sure that all of the families able to receive some monetary donations.
The biggest thing is going days on fo. It was the, you know, just the aftermath, just the debris, the smoke, the anguish of, you know, a lot of despair in people's faces, but then a lot of hope too. The hope was that everybody just came together, and, you know, as a city, as, you know, even a department, as city agencies all together, and as a nation, really. I mean, it's unfortunate it took that, but, you know, I'll never forget how everybody just came and, hey, how could I help? And really praying for you guys, we're pulling for you guys. And each and every day at the precinct or down at Ground Zero, there was people just bringing stuff trying to help out, whether it was PPE or food, to feed everybody and just to be just a cheer, to cheer us on.
And it was so sad of what happened, but it was the reaction of New York was so incredible. Even at the hospital, when we went in to help out, there was a line of people that went around the block donating blood. There was so many people that wanted to help and wanted to do their little part that it made me proud being a New Yorker. People wanted to help other people, not caring about what religion, what color, what race, political affiliation. Nobody cared about that at that time. Everybody wanted to do their little part to help each other.
It had a profound impact on our society and our government. Not just the federal government, but if you just look at how the city restructured, the NYPD and how to respond to terrorism, and here at Emergency Management, the expansion of our agency, mainly for preparedness, but also for, response, and the big efforts for recovery that we have to put forward now.
We lost a significant amount of responders there. I mean, you look at the numbers, immediately 343 firemen, 23 NYPD officers, over 32 Port Authority, and so many others, and hundreds, if not thousands, of illnesses and post 9/11 related to 9/11. It's a challenge. It's a constant reminder. It's a societal cost, but it just came with that attack. It's been a rippling effect and a constant reminder, even now as we approach the 2 decades. It's a reminder that we're still dealing with, and that are still bringing challenges at all levels.
Every 9/11, we all call each other, we get together. Just to be happy that we survived this. We were just, it's one of those things. We still have that bond. That's not gonna be broken. It's a strong bond, so. Henry, myself, Kamari, Janet, Calvin, all of us, we still have that. It is a day that we will never forget. I am very thankful that I'm here, and I saw my son grow up to be the person he is. And because of 9/11, he decided to join the military. And he is currently serving.
I remember I heard it somewhere over the years, where someone said, the ash and the soot that covered everyone's face, it was the same. It didn't matter what color you were underneath it. It didn't matter what gender you were underneath that soot. It was a unifying, factor that everyone in that moment, we were the same.
One of the things that I do to honor the fallen ones is I never miss going to the ceremony during the anniversary. It becomes repetitive on a year in and year out, right? Because you're reading the names of everyone, and it takes almost 4 hours to do so. But I do that because it's one way for me to remember them. And it's another way to say to people, don't forget, never forget what happened. And that's why I tell everybody, don't forget, never forget, and never forget that it happened, and never forget the people who were lost.